Hello and welcome to episode 1 in a new series I'm putting together called Audio, which is just where I look at some game sounds and music and talk about them because there's some really amazing things going on, and I figured it'd be a nice way for me to be able to explain some concepts which I find are absolutely amazing. And I figured I'd start with talking about a puzzle game I've very much enjoyed recently, a Monsters Expedition Through Puzzling Exhibitions by Draknek and Friends, who we can see right here. And a special shout has to go to Eli Rainsberry, who is responsible for the audio of this game, and I think they've done an absolutely incredible job. So, what I wanted to talk about was the use of responsive audio in this game, and to quickly go through some definitions, I figured I'd quickly talk about the difference between horizontal and vertical audio when we talk about adaptive design. So, typically the way that we approach music, which is cued by a player's interaction, which is what adaptive music is that we either have blocks of sound which could be played at random depending on what the player does, so that's referred to as horizontal because you're kind of building your blocks as you go, or you have vertical, which is where we have layers of music and the player's location or interactions or anything like that cues what combination of these things are done. So for example, you might start off in a very relaxed state and there'd only be one layer of music playing, like a flute. And then later on, as you get more intense, that flautist could be joined by, drums, bass, kazoo, and djembe, and the vuvuzela casually chilling out in the background as well for the extra drama. And so that would be referred to as vertical sound. And I think this game, A Monsters Expedition, does such a lovely job of combining elements of both of those ideas. So, the idea for today is that we're going to be just playing through the opening of this game. There's an opening credit sequence that happens about sort of 5 minutes in, so we're going to be playing up till then, and I think that's a great representation of how audio is presented throughout this game. Technically, for anyone who's interested, this game is made in Unity, and the audio is implemented through Fmod middleware, but I'm not really going to go into more of the specifics. It's more about the user experience. So, without further ado, we're going to be starting off with a new game, and I'll just be playing bits and pieces as we go, so, and talking about them. So let's go. Cool. So right off the bat, one of the things that I really love is how the sound really hasn't changed from the opening credits into the very opening of the game. The only thing that happens is the sound of the tugboat coming in and then leaving, and then we are as we are. So from then on, the only addition is the fact that as we're moving, we can hear the lovely grass, and that's that. And we can still hear that constantly beautiful seashore lapping kind of sound there, which we're actually going to mute now for the rest of, well, for the majority of the playthrough, because I want you to hear other things. Also, hello to our wonderful player there. Hello. All right. So what we're going to do is just get rid of the ambience, because we really want to focus on the music and the sounds. Okay, so what's going to happen now is we are going to push this log over, and when we do, that will start a block of music. This will start quite one long track going, and that's going to introduce the sound world of this particular game. And as I'm playing, I invite you to listen. I invite you to recognize what's going on. And if you don't want any spoilers, close your eyes, because it's a puzzle game, and I won't be saying any of the answers out loud. So we're going to go, and let's have a shot. Beautiful. So finding a new area brings us that kind of, cloud gasp. It's a wonderful sound there. Pushing over a log, just finds these kind of things. Gradually we'll notice that music in the background is growing. That could be vertical layering, so it could be adding more sounds as we are progressing further, but in actuality that is just the track itself. So in this case I could just be stood at the very beginning and it would play for its entirety, but this is something that people do use, and I do particularly like how this works, because as you are solving the puzzles it's as if the world is kind of expanding around you. It's gorgeous. And the instrumentation is lovely as well. So we've got that guitar, bass, piano, really relaxed drums. Quick note, there are lots of these exhibits. We're going to be ignoring all of them for the sake of this, for spoilers, and also to inspire you to go and check them out, because they're all hilarious and wonderful. So please do check this out. So we now get to a point where the opening track has finished. And what we're left with is a low drone, which is a D for anyone who cares. And what's really great is that from this moment in time, the game's approach to audio changes somewhat, and we have a layer of audio pretty much on top of all of the sound effects that we've just had. And this is where things get really special for me. So let's take a listen to what before was just us pushing a log and is now with the faintest little guitar part there. And let's push it again. And I just think it's magical, this way that from the static track that we had before, that finishing, leading us into this drone with random blocks of what could be of musical material. It's such a smooth transition that as I was playing it for the first time, I really didn't notice that it happened until about like half an hour through, and it was such a delight to realize. Cool. So we're now going to push this into the water, and again the next thing we're going to do is to look at a new island. Oh, and as another thing, there was a random bit of piano there, which I'm pretty sure is cued from about 5 pushes of the log. So again, that really helps add a different color, which is just a nice little thing. Okay, so we're going to be revealing a new island. So previously it was just that lovely kind of inhale, exhale of the clouds clearing. But we're going to be joined by something different now. And now that sound has the actual... has that extra piano part, and that's just another little nice thing. And believe me, when these puzzles get more complicated towards the end, hearing that, knowing that you've got to the next island, is the most cathartic experience. Other things that we might have just noticed: the drone note has changed. It's no longer a D. And these kind of things are just a lovely way that this game shows, the audio can support the puzzle game's attitude towards using a few small ingredients so well. You know, that small shift gives this island a different feeling to the previous one, even though it's a relatively straightforward change. In fact, messed that up. Gonna go along to the next island. Another change of the drone, which is fab. Right, and I'm just gonna do this island quickly, and then I'll talk through the next bit. Oh, and this one as well, my apologies. Oh, yeah. Okay, so just to kind of be a bit more explicit about this music, I'm actually gonna mute the sounds, and so we'll only be able to hear just those musical cues. Okay, so that's all muted, and I won't talk while I do this little puzzle so you can see what it's like. So, for anyone who actually knows the game, that was a particularly bizarre way of solving that problem, but I do apologize. Right, so we're now going to just take a look at my favorite thing that I realized as I was playing, which was that as one of the sounds The undo button, because we were able to actually go back on our actions, also has a little musical idea. And oh, whoops, my apologies. There we go. Here we go. Okay, so take a listen to... In fact, this one doesn't really matter, so let's keep going. Okay, great. So if you get stuck on an island, then you can reset the island, and you can also just go back by a move or two. And what's lovely is if we listen out to the sound that's associated with it. Then we get this beautiful little ride cymbal. And that's, again, just such a lovely little touch that's there going on. Yeah, so I'm just going to bring the music back in. And just in the context of everything, let's just hear that a little bit. You know, and the thing is, one of the things that's so wonderful about this game is that because it is the music and the soundtrack is essentially created by your own actions, the faster you play, the more frantic the soundtrack is. So especially when you go, oh, I'll do this and I'll do this and this. You know, and you suddenly fill up the sonic space, and so it just feels like it is responding to my playing in this really beautiful and cumulative way. I just think it's absolutely fabulous. So what we're going to do, just to do the audio the credit it deserves, we're going to turn back the ambience there, just so we can hear the beautiful sounds that are going on. And then we've just got a few more islands to go through, so I'm just going to pretty much play through them, and I'm not going to talk so that you can just listen to what the full game should actually sound like. And then this is the final island of the introductory bit. So we'll just solve this super quickly, he says, hopefully, and then immediately making a mistake. That is one of my favorite musical payoffs in a game I have ever experienced. Just that way that as you're playing and as you're going through the soundtrack and you push off and you realize that you can push off because that's a whole new thing, and then you're just waiting there and another track comes in and then it has that beautiful crescendo and then the title screen splashes up and you're just like, I'm in a very special game right now. And that's how I feel about this thing. I mean, and what's really wonderful about that segment is that it reminds you of the segment of music, is that it reminds you that the instrumentation it has been using in both that and in the first track, you know, at the very opening, that instrumentation is then used consistently throughout the game. So it builds up this really consistent sonic palette of instrumentation. And again, that really helps to build up that idea in puzzle games of using a few assets in the most flexible way, using an idea in every single possible way. And, you know, for a game which is essentially pushing logs, I am, first of all, just so impressed with it as a game. And second of all, I just think the way they've approached the audio in that generative, simplistic, yet incredibly efficient way is an absolute dream. And I wholeheartedly recommend that everyone check it out. So that is everything I wanted to say about the audio of this wonderful game, which is called A Monster's Expedition Through Puzzling Exhibitions. I very, very strongly recommend that everyone goes, checks it out on whatever device they have, because you can probably find it somewhere. And a huge thank you to everyone of the, everyone involved in making this, not just for making it, but for generally being pretty lovely when I've asked them questions or like when I've got stuck. And obviously a huge, huge shout out to the wonderful sound designer. And let's make sure that we have the name of these beautiful people. Eli Rainsberry, who's done a fantastic job on this. Cool. And we will stop there. Apologies to concept artists. So, and then fades out beautifully. Cool. So, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I just quite like the idea of putting together some videos where I just play through bits of games where I think the audio is amazing, and this would just seem like such an obvious first choice. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed and have yourselves a most wonderful day. Take care. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a game I've thoroughly enjoyed recently, A Monster's Expedition Through Puzzling Exhibitions. 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 Ugh. A Monster's Expedition Through Puzzling Exhibitions. Alright, let's try that again.